You ever have one of those days where your whole life changes before you even make it to the front porch? Yeah, that was me. I mean, picture it. I'm standing there, boots caked in old Colorado mud, heart pounding, wondering if the wind is colder or just angrier than usual. And then out of nowhere, this white SUV fishtails up the driveway like it's got unfinished business. The door flies open, and there she is. Hair like helmet plastic, blazer pressed sharper than a cattle prod, and a stack of papers clutched so tight, it's a miracle they didn't catch fire. Ethan Cole, she snaps, not even a hello, Ridgeway HOA. You're in violation. Honest to God, I hadn't even set my coffee down. Here's the real kicker. I'm standing on land my father bled for, land that's been in my family longer than some towns have had indoor plumbing, and this lady wants to talk to me about grass height and visual perimeter. I unfold her notice, hands already shaking, and all I can think is, my father warned me about snakes, just didn't say they'd show up driving luxury SUVs. I tell her, probably too politely, this property isn't part of your HOA. She smiles, the kind of smile you see on folks who always get the last word, and says, we claim authority over the entire visual perimeter that includes this ranch. Fines begin today. Her SUV is humming behind her, engine low and ready, like a wolf with its ears back. Meanwhile, my old man's land is spread out behind me, breathing slow, like it's waking up just to see what I'll do. I don't know the first thing about HOA law, but I do know this. I didn't just inherit a ranch. I inherited a fight. And right then, I decided, hell, if it's a fight they want, I'll show him how a Cole stands his ground. See, growing up out here, you don't just memorize fence lines. You memorize the shape of the wind. My father, boots always a half step ahead of me, would walk those lines every summer, pointing at a bend in the creek, making me recite old words. Boundaries matter, Ethan. Not because they keep others out, but because they remind you what you're responsible for. Back then, I didn't get it. I thought he was talking about cows and crops, but he was talking about us. He always carried this battered little notebook, soft leather, coffee stains, bits of grass wedged in the spine. Memory fades. Proof doesn't, he'd say, tapping it with a finger worn down from work. There was this one day, sharp as broken glass in my mind, even now. We were at the far east fence where the hills swallow up the sun. He knelt by a busted post, put my hand on the wood, and said, this ranch, son, has been fought for, rebuilt, defended, and rebuilt again. It's not just dirt, it's a promise. Then, real quiet, looking me dead in the eye, never let anyone take what's ours. I parroted it back, not knowing that one day it would be the only thing keeping me on my feet. But you know how it goes. You get older, you get hungry for something new. At 18, I left for college. Promised to come back, promised I wouldn't forget. Life in the city gets busy. Emails, deadlines, promotions, coffee cups that never quite taste like home. Dad and I, we drifted. Not on purpose, but that's how life works sometimes, right? I told myself he liked the quiet, that he was fine out here. I never guessed there was a storm still raging. Not in the clouds, but in the boardrooms and mailboxes of people who'd never dirted their hands on this land. Funerals have a way of fogging up the truth. Neighbors mumbled little hints, words like strong man, and stood his ground, but I didn't ask what they meant. Not until I wandered into his office, place still thick with cedar and regret, and found that old notebook. Same sketches, same reminders, but now, near the end, the writing got tighter, angrier. Letters from the HOA, one after another, all full of threats and complaints. Tucked at the back was a note, barely legible. Ethan, if you're reading this, the fight's come for you. Don't let them bury this land under their rules. Don't let them take what's ours. Reading that, guilt pressed down on me, so hard it nearly knocked the wind out of my chest. I wasn't just inheriting land. I was inheriting unfinished business, unfinished anger, and all the hope my father had left. Those boundaries he'd walked me along, they weren't lines in the dirt. They were lines in the soul. And now, they were my burden. By my second morning back, I noticed it. The ranch felt watched. Stepping outside, coffee steaming in the cold, I saw a white paper taped to the fence. 3 violation notices. Fence deterioration. Improper grass height. Unauthorized equipment. Hell, the equipment was my father's tractor, older than me, and just as stubborn. The tape snapped off like insults. Yesterday, I chalked the first notice up to bad timing. Today, it felt like war. I didn't call, I drove straight to the HOA clubhouse. Place looked like a resort for people allergic to dust. Glass walls, lawns cut by laser, SUVs lined up like soldiers. Too close to my property line, if you ask me. Inside, the air smelled fake. Marilyn, that's her name, the queen bee, was behind the desk, organizing papers with surgical precision. Her smile, when she saw me, was thin as a fence wire. 3 violations in 2 days, I said. I haven't even unpacked. She didn't miss a beat. Our standards apply regardless of your schedule. Grass, fencing, obsolete machinery. She made it sound like my ranch was the reason property values tank in the stock market. This isn't your community, I shot back. Private property, not your jurisdiction. But her eyes just got colder. Your father understood our authority. He respected structure. That one stung. My father, respecting her authority? No damn way. Respect isn't the word you're looking for, I told her. And he sure as hell didn't agree with you. We maintain visual harmony, she said, which includes adjacent properties. I couldn't help myself. Discretionary oversight? You show me where county law says you can boss me around. She smiled like a cat about to swat a bird. Some homeowners prefer cooperation over confrontation. I hope you're not choosing the latter. Everything about her said she wanted a fight, and I'll admit, I was starting to want one too. As I left, I caught sight of a map on the wall, the kind developers use to plot takeovers. There was plain as day, the clubhouse, nudging just a bit over what looked like my family's old boundary line. My heart started hammering. It wasn't proof, not yet, but it was something. When Marilyn asked if there was a problem, I just smiled. Not yet, but I'm starting to see how there could be. That's when things really kicked off. A county inspector showed up a few days later, looking sheepish. Septic leakage, improper waste disposal, hazardous materials, all anonymous complaints, he said. I nearly laughed. The East Pasture hadn't seen a drop of standing water in years. He checked, poked, prodded, and finally sighed. All clear. Off the record, your father dealt with this kind of thing, too. Lots of false complaints, always from the same neighborhood. Keep documenting everything. Then he was gone, and I stood there realizing I'd inherited more than a headache. I'd inherited a long-running campaign. But the twist? It didn't come from Marilyn. It came from the town gossip machine. Next thing I know, someone's posted a picture of my ranch on the local Facebook group, calling it an eyesore dragging down property values. Comments rolled in like a stampede. Disgraceful. Move it or fix it. I could almost hear the pitchforks. At the grocery store, folks whispered. At the feed store, a man wouldn't meet my eyes. It wasn't just the HOA anymore. It was the whole town, whipped up and ready to run me out. Frustrated, I went back through Dad's office, hunting for something, anything. That's when I found the box. Letters, years worth, all from the HOA. Some polite, most venomous. My dad's reply started firm, then got short, angry. In the margins, he'd scribbled, "They think their rules override the law." Harassment. Pure harassment. Near the bottom, a final note on an envelope. "They're building on borrowed time." That phrase bounced around in my skull, borrowed time. Not poetry. A warning. Something was buried deeper than HOA drama. I took those papers and marched straight to the only man who'd know. Henry Dawson, our neighbor to the west, a surveyor for 40 years and the kind of friend who shows up when nobody else will. Over black coffee and old maps, he laid it out. The HOA, led by Marilyn, had always been trying to push their boundaries, not just on paper, but on the land itself. He pointed at the survey maps. "That clubhouse sits over your line, Ethan. Your father knew it. He just couldn't fight him anymore." Armed with this, I called Ava Merrick, a lawyer with a reputation for hating bullies more than she hated missed deadlines. We dug up county records, and there was a 30-year lease my grandfather had signed, letting the HOA build their clubhouse with one crucial clause. If the lease expired and wasn't renewed, everything built had to be removed within 180 days. Lease expired in 2011. No renewal. 8 years. They've been trespassing collecting HOA dues, and harassing my father to cover up their own mistake. Now, let me pause right there. That was the moment I felt it, the lesson that hit like a sledgehammer. People in power will bend rules, rewrite stories, bury mistakes, all to protect their own comfort. And the ones who suffer are the quiet ones, the ones too busy working or too tired to fight. My dad hadn't been weak, he'd just been outnumbered. Until now. So, with Ava at my side, we went to war. The HOA meeting was a circus. Marilyn, smug as ever, thought I was there to argue about grass. I dropped the expired lease on the table, watched her face drain of color. Upon expiration, all structures must be removed unless a new lease is executed, I read. The room exploded in panic, board members whispering, residents demanding answers. Marilyn tried to bluff, but the truth was out. Her power came from fear and silence, and now she had neither. The county hearing was even sweeter. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with a stare that could stop a charging bull, listened as the HOA lawyer sputtered about practical authority and implied rights. Ava handed over the lease. The inspector testified the complaints were baseless. Henry confirmed the boundary markers. The judge didn't just side with us. She slammed the gavel so hard it rattled Marilyn's composure straight off her face. Clubhouse closed. Fines voided. Further attempts at control would be contempt of court. The room lost its collective mind. The fallout was delicious. Marilyn tried to spin the story, but folks turned on her faster than a bad batch of feed. An emergency meeting was called. Hands shot up, votes were counted, and just like that, the woman who'd ruled with an iron fist was voted out, her authority crumbling in front of everyone. When she left, angry, humiliated, alone, the room felt like it could finally breathe. Sometimes karma needs a little push, but when it comes, it's beautiful. A few days later, the new board, humbled, a little scared, and a whole lot more polite, invited me in. Formal apology, new lease, clear boundaries. The old lies scrubbed out for good. When I signed that paper, it wasn't just a contract, it was closure. My father, all those years fighting, was finally vindicated. The land was safe, the legacy restored. And you know what? The weirdest thing happened. The people who'd glared at me in the store started waving from their cars. Neighbors dropped off fence posts, brought stories about my dad, stories of him helping them in ways I'd never known. Turns out, sometimes all it takes is standing your ground for folks to remember you're not the enemy. You're just trying to do right by the land and the name you inherited. But I'll tell you the hardest truth I learned through all this. Strength isn't about noise or intimidation or even winning. It's about holding the line, quietly, stubbornly, day after day. It's about knowing when to fight, when to forgive, and when to let the land itself speak for you. Sometimes I still walk those boundaries at sunset, feeling the grass drag in my boots, hearing the wind say my father's name. The world's always going to have folks who want what isn't theirs, who rewrite rules and push lines. But legacy, real legacy, isn't something you inherit. It's something you protect every single day. So here's my question for you. Now that you've heard my story, where do you draw your own boundaries? What would you fight for? Even when everyone tells you it's hopeless. Is justice about who shouts loudest or who stands the longest? I'm still not sure. But I do know this. If you ever find yourself up against a Marilyn or anyone who thinks rules or there's a twist, don't back down. Hold the line. And if you've got a story like that, about justice, about standing up when it mattered, I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about where we draw the line and why.